Hey, it's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk, and let's talk oil. Everybody's favorite topic here on a Monday morning. But whenever you're watching this video, I'm joined by Bill O'Ryan. He's the director of API's Engine and Oil Licensing and Certification System. That's a really impressive title. And so I want to talk about oil because you happened, I think, in the title, know a thing or three about oil and what's going on with it.
Yeah. That's thanks for having me, Tim. I'm
Yeah,
really excited to be here and talk about engine oil on a Monday because that's what we do.
yeah. Thanks for joining me on this video. So, before we get too much in oil, because there's been a lot of changes the last couple of years, and I brought a prop with me. Look at that, I'm all fancy like this morning.
Nice.
I want to get into this discussion because there's been a lot of controversy online, a lot of controversy on YouTube, lots of opinions. I've
Yeah.
worked in the truck world, lots of opinions, but let's talk about the API. So, what is the American Petroleum Institute, and what do people, what's kind of a elevator speech on what it is?
Yeah. So at API, we are responsible for the licensing and certification process. So we're a trade organization of oil and gas. But we work with the oil marketers, the additive companies, the original equipment manufacturers, and our committees, where it's an open, consensus-based, standard-setting process, and we talk with the OEMs, try to find out what their needs are for their new engines as they're coming out with each new model year, and we sit down and talk through those technical details and come up with engine tests and bench tests and all sorts of other tests to make sure that the engine oils that are being blended and licensed by us are conforming to those technical standards and consumers can rely on. And we, of course, manage those certification marks, the Starburst, the Shield, and the Donut, as a visual aid, of course, for a consumer to look for when they're purchasing engine oil, or they can even ask if they're having their engine oil changed for them. What are you putting in my engine? And hopefully the mechanics have a pretty good knowledge of what it is they're changing.
Yeah, and if you, I'll put it close to the camera, but it's right here. There's a donut. The light
Yes.
doesn't bother me too much, but it's right
Yep.
there. And I actually went to Walmart and bought this. I don't know, a couple weeks ago for different videos. But so you put your stamp on there. So
Mhm.
how long have you been with the API, Bill?
So I've been with API since 2022. Prior to that, I've been in the engine oil additive business for a little over 30 years in engine oil, manufacturing and the technical side of actual engine test programs, field testing, and a lot of experience in that space. The bottle you held up also on the front, I think it had the Starburst.
Yep.
I caught it. Yep. So that's the Starburst is what we call an evergreen symbol. So consumers can look for that and be assured that the engine oil that they are purchasing is the most recent category, the most recent standard, and the donut on the back is where you'll see the API S category for passenger car, and the latest is API SQ, which is replacing API SP.
So you've seen over the course of your career, you've seen oil that came out like sludge that now looks like water. You've seen this transition over the years, and you had said that API, you work with the OEMs and
Yep.
you get the information from, the CAFE document, the rules comes from EPA and NHTSA combined together. So you get the government direction, the OEM direction. Did I hear that correctly? That you're blending the oils to work with the engines?
Oh, we are not. Yeah, we're just the trade organization that monitors and
Okay.
audits against our technical standards. The oil marketers are the ones that are responsible for the blending and ensuring the quality of the lubricant matches what they say it does. And we have
Okay.
an entire aftermarket audit program, where we call it AMAP, where once the oil marketers submit their license application to us for the various products, they have to submit what's called a licensed fingerprint, which has all the viscosity information, the elemental information, and then some bench test information. And then we can ask for a full candidate data package, or a CDP, which contains all of the engine test data, engine test reports, and we certify against that. And once they submit that, we have collectors that go out into the marketplace and do what we would like to say is more of a mystery shopper exercise, where they purchase products that are on our list of licensed products, and they get blind coded and sent to a test laboratory for testing against those standards.
I think one of the interesting parts that I read a lot, and you put out a paper on this with the upcoming new emissions rules starting 2027 through 2032. There's going to be some changes in oil for future oils to meet those emission standards because engines will change, and this has been talked about on the channel different times. Is the piece that you talk about, and I ran press releases from different oil companies. It's always talking about durability, and durability is a hot topic with lightweight oils. So it's interesting because the press releases say the new oils will make the engine more durable. I was watching football yesterday, right? And the Valvoline commercial. And it was
Sure.
like, oh, new oil will make the engines more durable because we have turbocharged engines the way the automakers are heading towards. And then you have the noise online, or the noise, but the criticism online is that's complete garbage. Like the new lightweight oils are making engines less durable. And because the turbos are heating up so hot, the oils are breaking down faster. The engines are being grenaded by the lightweight oils, and the oil change intervals are too long, which means the oils can't last. So I think it's interesting. We have this battle online. And so when I go out there and I say, hey, the oil is more durable, it's like, let's kill the messenger.
Yeah.
So, Bill, how can it be that these oils that look like water are just as durable as the oils like the 5W30, 10W30, whatever I grew up with back in the 80s, 90s? How can that possibly be?
Oh, I remember the days of 10W40 being the predominant, or 1030 even. Yeah, so the first thing you have to watch out for, obviously, is, and this is probably the most important thing, to ensure that if you're using one of those lightweight viscosity grades, that your OEM actually recommends it. In many cases, the lighter viscosity grades, and this is sort of a rule of thumb, but it's not, it varies. If your engine was designed to run on a lighter viscosity grade, say a 0W20 or 0W16 even, it's typically going to have tighter bearing clearances and other technological changes to the design to allow it to run that viscosity grade. And those engines are tested thoroughly, in our technical standard engine testing. Field test work is conducted by the marketers. The worst thing you can do is take an engine, for instance, that's designed on a 5W30 and try to run it with a 0W16, because that engine's just not designed with those tight clearances, and oil pump pressures are not designed to handle it. And it's also not good to go the other direction, right? If you've got an engine that's designed on a 0W16, you sure shouldn't run a 10W30 in it, right? So always follow the engine manufacturers or the vehicle manufacturers' owner's manual and what it recommends. So that's the first most important thing that you have to keep in mind. And so if people are using those lighter viscosity grades and you're having issues, certainly, talk to your OEM. Always ask if you go to a dealer for a change, if you go to a quick change lube outlet, make sure you're asking, what are you putting in my engine? Because I've had situations over the years going to any number of oil change outlets. I used to do it myself on a regular basis. Now I go to an outlet and you ask, what are you putting in? And there's quite often mechanics that, don't really know what they should be putting in, and they have bulk tanks. And if your engine asks for a 0W16, they might not even have it. Even if you go to a dealership, sometimes they won't have it. And that OEM might recommend, if you can't get a 016, use a 020, for instance. So that's the most important thing. Just make sure that you're not putting a mismatched viscosity grade into your engine.
So, do you think that the lighter weight oils are still as protection wise still as good as the like 10W40s and things, or do you think that it has the molecules improved? I mean, has the has it really made a difference? Are lightweight oils really
Yeah.
much more advanced?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of changes in engine oil technology, engine oil formulating over the years. Much better base oils. The base oil, generally forms about 70 to 80% of the entire bottle, and that base oil's gone from what we call API group ones and twos, going back 15, 20, plus years ago, to predominantly API group threes, maybe even some API group fours. So we're getting into synthetic base stocks, which are going to handle oxidation stability much better. And the additive technology itself is advanced as well, to the point where, yes, a lighter, thinner oil, again, in an engine that's designed for it, is going to be extremely durable. And remember, the reason they were going predominantly to lighter viscosity grades is because of those CAFE requirements over the years. And total vehicle ownership is a big deal to OEMs as well. They want to uh, make sure that consumers can get enhanced fuel economy, and it's much easier to do that with a thinner oil than it is with a thicker oil. It doesn't mean you can't have it in both spaces, but it's just generally easier. And so that's why they're doing that. And in a lot of cases with turbochargers, you mentioned turbochargers. The oil lines going to a turbocharger are very small orifices. If you try to pump a thicker oil through that, you could have issues. Higher resonance time will lead to something like a baking effect of the oil. But again, it's all based on what that engine was designed to run on. That's the most important thing.
And what's also interesting when I look at this bottle, it says protects for up to 20,000 miles guaranteed. Now, I grew up with 3,000 miles, right? That was the mantra. And
Yes.
I remember I remember oil change places in every street corner,
Yep.
everywhere. And now I drive around and those oil change places don't exist as much as they used to. And it's kind of weird. I didn't even notice this until I started talking about oil
Yeah.
more. It's kind of crazy the number of oil change places have kind of gone down because it used to be. I mean, every corner it was like Family Dollars now, right? That
Right.
was oil change
Right.
places, and
Yeah.
now they've gone away. So now we have longer periods of time, but I've heard this quite a bit, are
Yeah.
saying, no, 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 that's wrong. We need to go back to 3,000-mile oil change intervals because this oil doesn't last. So when you talk to the oil marketers
Yeah.
who create this oil, you said they're doing testing with the engines and things.
hmm
What would their pushback be on this?
Well, there's a couple things, right? A lot of people that drive their vehicles aren't aware of what is considered severe duty, right? So if you open your owner's manual, many times it will say under normal driving conditions, you know, today it's more like a 6,000 to maybe a 7,500 mile under normal duty. But severe duty is anything where you're in a dusty, short commutes, under high loads, if you're towing anything, there's a lot of things that are listed in an owner's manual. And so that's where that 3,000 mile or even 5,000 mile bogey was kind of out there for many, many years. Um, and so a lot of the marketers do like to say protects up to 20,000 miles, as you mentioned, in that particular case. They've done, hopefully, extensive field testing to show that it can work. But of course, if you're driving under severe duty, that can change how often you need to change your oil. And it's also not just mileage, it's time. So if you've got a vehicle that's sitting for a long time and it won't, say, reach 7,500 miles for 6 months or longer, the recommendation is you should still change it because you're going to have water entrainment. You're going to let some of those oxidation, radicals continue to sort of eat away the stability of the engine oil.
It's interesting about time. Yeah, I have a friend who drives 6,000 miles a year, changes his oil once a year because he's like, he just it just you said time as well. So, uh,
Yeah.
so moving forward with these oils, so it feels like we went quickly from like 10W40 to 5W30 to now
Yes.
0W20, 0W16. It feels like it was a very
Yes.
rapid
Yeah.
change. So, looking at the future of engine oils with 2027, 2032, are you seeing a future rapid change, or do you think we're going to level off? Because I think I just did the 2026 Toyota RAV4 that uses 0W8.
Right. Right.
So, do you see the changes are done? More massive changes, or are you going to level out here in a little while?
I think it's going to level off now. Zero W. I mean, we all, those of us that did, live through the 10W30 to 530 to 520, back in the early 2000s, and thinking how thin that oil is. And 08, 012 those are extremely ultra low viscosity engine oils. And so I don't know really how much thinner you can go from a viscosity standpoint. So I do think it's going to level off, and I think even some of the OEMs might be backing off just a little bit on going all the way down to 0W8. So I don't think you'll see too much driving it even lower than that on the passenger car side. On the heavy duty diesel side, it's much slower. 15W40s obviously are still out there, and it's moving down towards the XW30s in the last category. Now we're working on the new category that's going to move down to the XW20s as part of the split category.
Do you think that that was probably the biggest pushback? Is people? It just happened so fast, and that these oils came out so quickly. It was like, oh my gosh, you know, truck guys like me, and the older I get, especially,
Mm-hmm.
change is not something I really welcome anymore. And
Yeah,
so when this change happened so quickly, do you think that's probably the primary pushback was like, we just all this change happened. And I remember went from V8s to
yeah,
single activation to
yeah,
lightweight oils to turbos to it was very rapid.
yeah. It has been. It really. I mean, hats off to the OEMs for you know really trying to squeeze every bit of fuel economy they can out of engines. The power density has gone up significantly over the last 10, 15 years. So you've got much smaller engines that are putting out even higher torque and horsepower than their predecessors. And that generally leads to a lower sump, right? So a lower sump means less engine oil. And so that does stress the engine oil, which is why we continue to develop new categories to ensure that, you can do that and still not have engine oils that are going to fail early. But yeah, I agree with you completely. I think it has been very rapid change, and people that I can recall going out and visiting heavy duty truck fleets many many years ago and having one of the maintenance guys come up and kind of run the engine oil through his fingers and say, "Oh, that's too thin," you know. Um, and that was going from 1540 down to say 1040. So yeah,
Yeah, I looking up now and it's like you can't even see it in your fingers. It's a dramatic change.
it
So yeah,
is.
I wonder what those people would think now about durability because that still
Yeah.
remains the big question, right?
Yeah, it certainly does. And again, you've got to pay attention. Absolutely can't hammer this point home enough. Follow your OEM's recommendations on viscosity grade. Ask questions if you're having your oil changed for you. Look for the starburst in the donut to ensure that it's meeting what the OEM is requiring and that it is the latest, category, assuming that's what the OEM is recommending. And and watch out for severe duty because that would shorten your engine oil change intervals for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've talked to a few people online that believe that if they put the heavier weight oil in their truck, they're making their truck more durable, the engine more durable. And I would say that they're probably making it less durable because now they're pushing a heavier weight oil through those orifices, and it's
Yeah.
going to cause maybe some equipment problems, parts problems.
Yeah, it's viscosity by itself is obviously where film thickness starts. So you're creating a thicker pressure pocket for any of the journal bearings, for instance. The problem with heavier viscosity, also, if your engine's not designed for it, is, your oil pump has to pump it from, as soon as you crank over, from the pan all the way to the top deck and drop it out of the cam lobes and the actuators. And if that takes longer to pump, your startup wear is going to be higher. So you've really got to watch, and
Watch, yeah.
certainly check online too. There's all these forums, right? Yours included, that talk about this, and there are going to be situations where an engine could have some issues, despite following all the recommendations, and just keep an eye out for that. But in general, you've got to be careful with. It goes both directions: low viscosity to high, high to low. It's really going to depend on what that engine was designed for.
No, very good. Well, thanks for your time.
Absolutely, Tim. Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This was really good.